Welcome back to our discussion, Mission-Focused Business Leadership and Acquisition Modernization for the U.S. Air Force, sponsored by Appian here on Federal News Network. My guests today are Lieutenant Colonel Mark Wagner, Chief of Contracting Business Systems for the Air Force, and Ben Allen, Director of Federal Acquisition Solutions at Appian. I'm your moderator, Tom Temin. And Lieutenant Colonel Wagner, before the break, we were talking about the progress you've made with the ConIT contract writing system that has been redeveloped using Appian tools. Where is it heading? What do you envision for the future of this important program?
Well, thanks. Yeah, where we're going next is the conversation that we are always having. We develop in an agile manner. So we're not just thinking about the extremely long term. We're asking that question sprint to sprint every 3 weeks. And right now, our focus is on shutting down legacy systems and modernizing contracting for all of our mission-focused business leaders across the Air Force, especially in the major systems programs. These are large, complex contracts, and they will be challenging to migrate, but we have some really good teams working on it to do a lot of automation to help with the migration solutions. These contracts are going to involve some special coding and also offer some opportunities to do some advanced modernization work. It's going to be a lot of work to turn those requirements into code and into a product, but we've done over 70 sprints so far, and we plan to do a lot more going forward.
Yeah, Ben Allen, that's an important question because every system that is now legacy started out as a brand new system. So maybe is it possible for the government and its contractors to avoid that legacy phenomenon repeating over and over every few years in some manner of continuously updating systems using tools such as yours?
Yeah, there definitely is. I think the key is to not have it be hard coded, not that traditional coding, because that's where it becomes very difficult to extend it and then to modernize it. Because oftentimes when you've branched away from that COTS baseline, you're locked out of their next upgrade. With a low code platform, you have your configurations, you can update your configurations at any time. They're backwards compatible as you upgrade the platform itself. And then as the platform upgrades, it's bringing in new capabilities that you can then bring into your processes. As Colonel Wagner was saying, they're releasing in sprints. So when the platform gets upgraded and it has some new capability that can be used in the acquisition cycle, they can begin configuring that for their process. And then within a few sprints, have that in the hands of the user.
Because regulations change, laws change, the DFAR may change. These are the kinds of things that need to be coded into systems. And it sounds like you're saying they can be added as logical elements without a lot of coding that then gets stuck as permanent code.
That's correct. Acquisition is always evolving, and it could just be FAQ updates that are happening, every quarter or even more frequently than that you need to upgrade update within the system. But I think what's also important when you look at being able to change an acquisition system, it's not just responding to the regulations, it's acquisition, innovation from the thought leadership within that community. So Air Force has a new idea about how they'd like to more efficiently procure something. If the application isn't flexible enough to implement that change, it's really hard to get the users to be able to do it because they need a system to write it and they need help with the change management of showing them how to do it. But you can now have that idea, that thought, you can put it into the application, you can put it in the hands of the users, they can use it, they can provide feedback, and you can tweak it over time.
Mark, that sounds like it plays well into the way you describe the sprints, that you don't need this massive systems integration effort every time you need to make a change or add something. Sound about right?
It is. So there is a significant orchestration that goes into bringing the product through the sprints from the requirements that we have, the modernization ideas that we can apply to that, and getting it into the product. It's really not about taking a paper process and digitizing it into a platform. It's really about thinking, how can we do business differently? So for example, as I'm writing a contract line item for years, I've always opened up a screen, it's got fields, I start typing into it. What can I do that's better? What can I do that's more efficient and modernized? I can use Excel, create a Excel file of contract line items, hit upload, and my CLIN design goes right into the contract document. That gives me a more familiar and easier way to replicate and cut down some of the steps of the process for that element of that part of the workload. We want to do that throughout the product and really challenge ourselves for how can we really do the modernization piece of it and move things forward even better.
And the ConIT program is clearly a signature development at the Air Force. Is this applicable across government? Because everybody writes contracts. How can we get this expanded? Ben?
Yeah, definitely is. And we're seeing that interest from other DoD as well as federal civilian customers to see and take what ConIT has done and implement it in their organization as well. I think at a high level, acquisition in the process is really similar. It's once you get a little bit lower level where there are some differences. And with the low-code platform, you can take what ConIT has done, and then you can make those changes in the low-code platform to fit your organization and its specific mission.
Yeah, Mark, you must get a lot of people coming through taking a look at this from other components within the Defense Department, or maybe even beyond the Defense Department.
So we have had a lot of interest from around the Department of Defense and as well as the Fourth Estate and some other agencies that are curious and asking what we're up to. And we're happy to share and talk about the program and what we've done so far. It's really about how we work as a team across the acquisition community and work with our development teams to move everything forward.
And by the way, how well did it perform at the end of the fiscal year? Because that's always a crunch for the contracting community.
It is a crunch for the contracting community. September is always a stressful month for the contracting community. And this year it went really well. ConIT processed over 57,000 contract actions last fiscal year, with a little over 20% of that happening in the month of September. So we were busy. We obligated over $15 billion at our operational offices. And when we expand to the systems communities, that will go up even more as we sunset those legacy systems. 2019 was our first end of year that we did with ConIT. We did have some issues. We found some bugs, but we were able to get that through development, get those requirements over to the teams, and they worked through that, and it culminated in a really successful execution for 2020.
All right, so Ben, final question to you. This sounds like something that's not just simply modernizing code, but really modernizing thinking and modernizing, in a digital sense, the efficiencies that people really want to get so that they are not in the legacy systems anymore.
That's correct. It's not just the system, it's the way of thinking, it's the way of doing business, and it's their expectations for the system. I think for so long, users have just been using an application as the way the application told them they had to use it. And I think now what we're seeing is the ability to provide feedback and see those changes and watch the system modernize as all the technology around you modernizes as well. So you no longer feel left out when you look at your phone and all the great things it can do, and then you go back to your computer and you use a 15-year-old technology to write a contract. We now have a system that can keep up with that.
Okay, great place to end. I want to thank today's guests. Ben Allen is Director of Federal Acquisition Solutions at Appian, Lieutenant Colonel Mark Wagner, Chief of Contracting Business Systems at the U.S. Air Force. I'm your moderator, Tom Temin. You've been listening to Federal News Network. For more on this discussion, visit federalnewsnetwork.com and search Appian.